So wonderful to have you with us. This is our annual Directors Forum on the international programs. We have wonderful international programs in 4 cities, and we're going to hear from students and faculty in each of the 4. I've asked each of the 4 countries to hold themselves within 10 minutes, or I'm asking now, so that we can then have a good 20 minutes of Q&A. And I'm going in alphabetical order so as to show no preference. You'll see wonderful pictures from the various programs as we go along. Thanks for sending those, guys. And so we're starting with Hong Kong. And May, I'll turn it over to you, May Fong, who runs the Hong Kong program.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. My name's May Fong, and I've been doing the Hong Kong program for a year. Before that, Jay and I were co-teaching the Shanghai program. And prior to coming to Annenberg, I was at the Wall Street Journal. I was both the Wall Street Journal correspondent for Hong Kong and Beijing, so I know that area of the world pretty well. So Hong Kong's a pretty exciting place for both, I think, PR and journalism sorts. You know, you're in the gateway to Asia, basically. So, and English, fortunately, is very widely spoken. So you don't have as many difficulties as you would perhaps if you were in some other parts of the world. So, I mean, from the journalism perspective, you know, what's not to say, every year the students go in, they come in at a particularly exciting time in June, because that's when they have a lot of the democracy march demonstrations, and usually the yearly protest for Tiananmen Square. So there's always a lot of issues to cover, and a couple of years ago the students went in and there was SARS, so so that was something interesting too, very story-worthy. Not that I'm recommending that we have an epidemic the next time we go. But, and you know, Hong Kong's a financial center, so there's a lot of stories about, you know, big stuff, you know, big companies going down, crashing, you know, also excess is a big story, you know, it has the largest Rolls-Royce usage per capita, the largest XO brandy consumption per capita. There's lots of stories about rich, and at the same time, there's also one of the countries where you have a huge income inequality. So Ben, for example, wrote a story about when he was interning this summer, and Christy both wrote a story about how there were people living in this little coffin apartments about the size of a coffin, basically, just within a stone's throw of Times Square, which is one of the biggest shopping districts in the world, which has more expensive rentals than Champs-Elysees or Bond Street, for that matter. So, you know, it's got a lot of stories from that side. From the PR side, you know, you know, Tim and you were here to say, if you want to speak a little bit about the PR side, I'll let her speak a little bit. But there's loads to do. I think you're not treated as an intern usually. You're expected to do a lot very quickly, especially if you speak a little bit of Chinese. There's a lot of stuff for you to do out there. And last year, for example, we visited the Disney office, headquarters, and they were saying that they were in the market to hire a lot of people for Disney Shanghai when it opens up soon. And they also gave us free passes to Disney, which was rather nice. So from that perspective, it's an exciting city. There's, you know, it's 24/7. You know, people talk about New York being a city that's 24 hours. Well, that's nothing compared to Hong Kong. There's always, I mean, you have the world's longest escalator that stretches all the way from the mountains down to the financial district. So, you know, you can and don't forget, from there you can hop to anywhere. Lots of people do go to Cambodia for weekends, they go to Vietnam for weekends, Bali. It's a pretty nice, or not to mention China, you know, jumped in a train, you're in Guangzhou, so that's really nice too. So I'll let the students tell you about their experiences, because that's much more interesting and exciting. So Christy, you want to start?
Okay, I think for me it was a different experience because I went in not really expecting anything, because I kind of went just to go to Hong Kong, because I'm there 3 months a year. It's kind of like my second home. So I think it speaks a lot just to say that I had a really good time there, even though I'm there 3 months a year since I was like 4 months old. So that really says a lot. I had a really good experience there. I was at CNN International with Ben. And like May said, like, we weren't treated like interns, and I really felt like I did a lot more than I thought I would be, just because I was able to speak the language and go back and forth. And You know, I didn't think, the thing about me is I really didn't think much of the experience. Like, I didn't think much going into it, and I had such a good time that I can't emphasize enough that you really should give it a chance, and you'll come back like with such a great experience. And that, you know, just getting to go on trips to China, to everywhere else, meeting a whole bunch of people, and for me, I think it really opened up my eyes to, you know, possibly getting a job internationally. And I think that's what this experience did that was different from me going all the time by myself, you know, with my family, being there 3 months a year. This experience really did change my outlook and maybe the possibility of doing some reporting there after I graduate. So it was definitely a great experience, and you should definitely consider Hong Kong and go.
Thank you.
And just to build off of that, I was really looking for a very positive summer intern experience when I was going into this program, and that was very important to me. As much as having a good time and, you know, enjoying myself, I wanted a really positive work experience. And I feel like the experience I got with CNN.com in Hong Kong was that experience. Have a great relationship with my former boss there, and really they thrust me right into the newsroom, and I was, you know, the first week I was working on stories and helping run the homepage, and talking and corresponding with our bureaus in Asia. Also, there was times when there were holes in coverage when there was a big riots in Vancouver after the Stanley Cup. You know, Hong Kong was on deck to help out with that story, so I had to help out with coordinating, putting that story together. So that was a really cool experience. Not to mention, Hong Kong is just a fantastic city to live in and to experience. I had never been to Asia before, although I had done a lot of traveling. And it's really, like May said, it's really the gateway to Asia. We had so much fun as a group. We were really close. May had some really incredible speakers come talk to us for our classes. People that had worked either had worked in Asia or still are working in Asia in either journalism or PR. Overall, it was just such a great experience, and I would sing its praises any day. So.
Thank you. Now we're done gallery.
Could you speak a little bit about what it's like from the PR side and as a person who's, you know, from China, so working in Hong Kong?
I think, because I'm from China, so Hong Kong is not beyond my comfort zone, especially for students who can speak a second language, or if you can speak, for those Chinese students, if you can speak Chinese or Cantonese, I think your value will be much more treasured there. And if you can speak Chinese or Cantonese, is okay because you can speak English to almost everyone in Hong Kong, so you don't feel weird.
You want to tell them what you did, Chelma? What was your internship?
Yeah. I interned in Fast Track agency, it's a PR agency, which has a headquarters in London. So a lot of my colleagues and all the staff there are from London, so they cannot speak Mandarin at all. So when I'm there, I'm the only one who can speak Mandarin, so I help them a lot. On the PR side, especially to communicate with the media in Shanghai and in Asia overall. So I think the experience is great, and especially every weekend we have a guest speaker to talk about us, those on the journalism side and PR side. And I think I also learned a lot from those guest speakers.
Okay, thanks, Emma.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Hong Kong. We'll be back to you, I'm sure. But you've just provided us with a great segue to London. And John Fowler, who is our faculty member in London.
It's as true now as it was hundreds of years ago when Dr. Johnson said, if you're tired of London, you're tired of life. London is the world's center for business, it's the world's center for communications, and the internships that we're able to provide the students there reflect that. For journalism students, I know we have, for this summer, we have The Guardian and we have The Independent, two of the major daily papers. We've had in past years the BBC. We have CBS again this summer. That's both on broadcast and for online. We've had CNN, we've had CNBC, MSNBC. We've had the Times, we've had the Financial Times, all the major players in a world-class major city. On the PR side, we've had, in addition to the major agencies like Conan Wolf and those kinds of folks, Dr. Chandler. We also have the benefit of an online placement, an on-site placement person who will come and speak with you all first part of the year, January, and try and tailor your desires for placement to specific entities, firms, companies, agencies. Samantha Wan, who's going to speak in a couple of minutes, expressed a desire to go into food and restaurant public relations, and she'll speak about her experience there last summer. We had a student that wanted to do entertainment public relations, and she wound up handling the world's largest premiere ever, I guess, the Harry Potter premiere. She also did Kung Fu Panda. Big responsibility. Our CBS person was the only journalist in London, including all the big-time, high-priced persons, who got an interview with Mitt Romney. He was visiting London last semester. He was told, all the journalists were told, Romney was not taking questions. Didn't stop our student, and as a result, his interview was carried by CBS around the world. So those kinds of opportunities. Also in the belief that London is about as representative of the United Kingdom as LA or New York are for Los Angeles, we get out of London. Our principal trip next summer, as in years past, will be to Belfast, Northern Ireland. A place much in the news, but not very well understood, and you'll understand it after you're back. You get to meet with principals of all the sectarian parties and factions there, elected representatives of their parliament, former felons, fresh out of prison, some of them, and understand what's going on about the troubles that have lasted now for several centuries. But Ireland, as you can see from some of the pictures, is also a very beautiful place. And we'll be touring the countryside, going to castles, and that kind of stuff as well. Because of the vagaries of British immigration rules, as students, you're only able to work 4 days a week, which means that you have very long weekends. And from where you work, where you live rather, in Russell Square, you're literally walking distance to Europe. You walk up Tavistock Street to Euston Station, get on the Eurostar, and you're in Brussels and Paris in 2 hours. Most of our students spend most of their weekends in Europe, and I would guess you'd have the opportunity to do that again next summer. It's London, well, I'll put it this way, the reality is if you get on a plane in Los Angeles and fly 5 hours east, you're in Boston and New York. If you get on a plane in London and fly 5 hours east, you're out of Europe, you're in Asia. Everything is really that close, have that opportunity. I'll be around for questions about the London program later, but I wanted to have Samantha Wan say a few words about her experiences this summer.
Yeah, so I interned at a small boutique firm. It was called Magnolia, and they have a sister company called Lotus. So between the two, there's actually only about 5 or 6 employees total, including the owners. So it was a really hands-on experience. And I got to coordinate the British Barbecue Championships for our client, Laverstow Park Farm, an organic farm that was started by Jody Scheckter, a former Formula race car driver. So the first round took place at the Taste of London. So I got to coordinate all the logistics, arrange all the chefs and what they wanted to cook, and actually work that event. So I got to network with a lot of people and meet a lot of chefs, and a lot of them invited me to go to their kitchen and be a chef for a day. So it was a lot of fun. And besides that, one of our big clients is the Fat Duck, which is the #1 or 2 restaurant, San Pellegrino, in the world. So I also got to visit there and taste a little bit of their food, where they actually have about a 14, 15 course meal, 2 servings a day, and it takes months to get reservations off in this little town of Bray. And it was overall a great experience.
3 Michelin stars, 2 Michelin?
3 Michelin
3
stars.
Michelin stars.
So it was a great experience.
What Sam was able to do was typical of the way the Brits treat interns. they throw you into the deep end and see if you can swim or not. And to the extent you can swim, they load you up with work. They really, really load you up with work. And you can't swim the ground. But it's not scut work. It's real, honest to God work, the kind you just can't do in the United States as an intern, because they look at interns as extra labor, because our students come to bat with so much experience, especially in the social media. Something the Brits aren't very good at. You will be utilized, and you will have plenty of opportunities to make a name for yourself. We've had students on the journalism side byline, in the Financial Times, in the Times, and the Observer. Had a student a couple of years ago that wanted to cover Wimbledon. Like, yeah, you're an intern, you want to go cover Wimbledon. Did, first day, byline. You have those opportunities. So London is a very, very big pond, and it's a nice place to swim.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Samantha. And now we move to Shanghai. Jay Wang.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Wang. I directed the Shanghai program, and this is actually, this was the second year. So last year, we inaugurated the program in Shanghai to take advantage of the Expo event that was being held in the city. I guess I didn't see any of my students who were here because we had a smaller group last year, 6 students, and maybe a good reason is that 2 of them actually have full-time jobs now. So both of them are working in China. Actually, both jobs kind of grew out of the summer internship. One person is working at Siemens, the German company in Shanghai, in the capacity of a communication specialist. And the other person is working at Golden Harris, Beijing. She interned in Golden Harris, Shanghai at the time. You know, I was talking with the general manager, and they were so impressed by her and said, well, we wanted to hire her. And so that sort of led to her full-time employment. So we had a smaller program this past year, and what is slightly different probably from the other programs is that out of the 6 students, 2 of them from a global communications program, and 1 from cloud management, and 3 from SPR. So it is a kind of program that basically draws the entire school, the students' body together. And I've constantly been thinking about how to make our program very compelling for our students, because this type of program, we even on this campus, there are other schools offering similar study abroad programs, similar internship programs, and also our time is not very much. 2 months is not really a lot of time. For Shanghai, all of our students so far were in PR. So for the agency work, 2 months is just a little bit short. 3 months is kind of the minimum. And so how do you maximize the time there? And but also the temptations are so many, because you are in a new environment. And for Shanghai program, we also had a lot of participation from our Chinese students. So we position the program as a rediscovering experience as well for them. So because they need to see something that they haven't seen before, something that they find it interesting and compelling. So you don't really have much time. So what we try to do is really to focus on the professional aspect of this. In light of certainly it's a cultural experience, and so what I've been looking for is from our students, so what kind of a difference is it made for you professionally, after the internship. So I had one student told me that, after this internship, I realized that I didn't really like PR. That's great, because that's we discovered, because we haven't done this, you wouldn't know, right? So that's fine, then you move on to other things. And then most of the students say, well, yeah, I really don't want to work in this area. And so then the next, concrete measure is, does that experience lead to an internship? And which last year we had one student participate in Shanghai program, and she was applying for an internship at Edelman here, and she didn't receive any, callback. And so she went to Shanghai program and interned at the Ketchum Shanghai. And so when she came back, and I told all of our students that when you come back, the first thing you do is to revise your resume and then send it out. And so she did. And same to Edelman, and Edelman immediately called her back, and one of the opening questions they asked was, so what were you doing in Shanghai at Ketchum? So that was the kind of result that, to show the concrete difference that we're making. And certainly this year, the 2 students who interned in Shanghai that, that helped to lead to full-time employment, that certainly is one of the things that, I constantly trying to focus on, say how we can make this work better or more effective. And certainly, if it hasn't led to an internship or a full-time employment, it has to be a very compelling part of your resume. It has to make your resume stand out. And so, so the things that we do in Shanghai, trying to focus on this and trying to focus really on living and working in Shanghai. And one of the things actually I heard from our first group, they wanted actually to see how other agencies work, also how other, their fellow participants, their work environment. So this year we arranged a tour of 3 different agencies, so for them to see the similar agencies, and to meet with the general manager to tour the office. And so that was very interesting to get a better, also to get a kind of broader view of what kind of agency work is like in Shanghai. And the other thing I think, what I did, and I think I'm trying to think how we can do this even better, is to tap into our alumni network, because we have a very strong network out in Shanghai, in China. And so I tried to identify opportunities for our students to participate in some of these social events and some of these programs. And so they may be and also invite some of them to come to speak with us, to meet with our students. Basically, what I hope that going forward, maybe something that Matthew, the international office could think about is how do you tap into this and kind of establish kind of mentor, kind of a relationship to really help our students to get a better view of how it's working and living in the city like Shanghai is like, if that's what they're interested in doing. And I think the network, that's been proven here in the U.S., and I'm sure if it's the same overseas, that would be incredibly important for our students' professional development going forward.
Jay, I wonder if I could, go ahead.
I was actually going to just see if Jay could approach the question of how we can get more of our journalism students to Shanghai.
I was going to take a slightly different approach. That is to mention that one of the strengths of these programs is that it brings, I think most of the students would agree, that it brings strategic PR students and journalists together. But for a number of complex reasons, Shanghai has definitely appealed primarily, or even last year exclusively, to our PR students. So, yeah, you might address that for any journalism.
Sure. In fact, this last summer, we ran into 3 of our undergrads interning in China. So one person actually I helped, she wanted to intern at China Central Television. So I actually helped to make the contact for her. So she was interning there, and then she went to a language camp. And 2 other students, they were in Shanghai. Actually, we ran into them at one of the social events. And so they were, I think one was writing for an online publication, and the other is, it's a business publication in Shanghai, I think. And so for our graduate program, certainly the challenges are twofold. One, for international media, because the Chinese government's regulation, so you cannot go, if you're going there as working for the New York Times as an intern, you need some sort of visa or whatever the certification process. And so that becomes too onerous. It's very difficult to do. And also, they are looking for Chinese language capability, so that because as an intern, I think mostly they are doing research, right, for the journalists there. For the Chinese media, certainly, because there is this whole entire issue of censorship, right? And I think. That's what my guess is. Our students would rather prefer to work in a more free press environment as opposed to controlled press environment. Having said that, I think in China, certainly there's a lot more freedom in terms of news coverage, and there are also different types of media outlets that's out there. And so I was thinking, if you're trying to cover lifestyle issues like food, cuisine, all these things, there are lots of opportunities there. But I think even if you were to work for a Chinese state-owned media operation like China Central Television or the Xinhua News Agency or the China Daily, which actually they do look for interns from international universities. And I think it would be also a very valuable experience, because I always say that, then you can witness how censorship actually works. It's not what you think how it works. So it will be very, very interesting, because for me, if I see somebody on the resume saying that, okay, I worked, in addition to some of these very standard, Western media organizations, I also had some experience in Chinese TV and Xinhua News Agency. It's more interesting. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
I should add to it. I mean, I think the thing that, if any of you are at all interested in being a foreign correspondent somewhere, China's a really great place to be if you don't want to wear a flak jacket all the time. This is there are two big stories in the world that rule as far as, it's war, and the other one is economics. And for anybody who, China is the story. You're everything from environment to what the factories are producing, to the currency, to what 1 billion people think of the latest Coke or product out there. There's a million stories to write about. So if you're at all interested and want to anchor yourself in, this is a really good opportunity, because the major organizations want people who have worked there before, who know a little bit something, can speak the language maybe. So I see it not specifically through our program, because we haven't had many journalism students who are willing to sort of launch themselves in China just yet, but I've seen a lot of young journalists go there and position themselves and make that huge leapfrog into international journalists at a very, very quick stage, because they're willing to take the risk and position themselves there. For one of my colleagues before, Matt Pottinger was a very young junior reporter in Washington. He decided that China was the way to go. He flew there. He took language lessons, positioned, started writing, and then within 2 or 3 years, he was writing for the Wall Street Journal. You just don't make that leap here in that time frame. You will spend a lot longer time trying to climb up the ranks and make so that's that's definitely maybe a sort of a slightly risky gamble, but this is where all the opportunity comes in. Jeremy Goldkorn, who runs this website called Danwei, which is very popular, he went out there as a young student, and out of nowhere, he just started one of the most popular media websites out there. There's a lot of opportunity and space there that that I don't think is quite as evident here.
Great, well said. I want to be sure, just
I want
a
to
couple
pick
quick
up-
words,
Okay.
but then I want to get South Africa in, and we'll have a broader discussion.
I just wanted to pick up on what you said about the merging of the meaning of public relations and journalism. One of the valuable education experiences that you're going to have, regardless of where you go, is going to be the only time you get to talk to your opposite numbers here at the Annenberg School. These are public relations students and journalism students living in close proximity, sharing experiences for 8 weeks. And you don't get those opportunities here in Los Angeles. The other thing about London particularly is that, unlike what you might believe here in Los Angeles, in London at least, the reliance of journalism on the public relations field is huge. It's a very collaborative enterprise, and very different than in the U.S., where it tends to be antagonistic. And that's a different side of something that's worthwhile seeing.
I think it is one of the strengths.
I just want to play off something that May said, actually, is not even specific to Hong Kong and Shanghai, but in all 4 of our locations, if anyone is interested in business journalism, we have so many opportunities in financial and economic journalism that go unused. And I think it would be an amazing field to work towards for a professional career. I mean, we have a lot of emphasis, I think, in entertainment, well, these guys could speak to it better than I, but if you're interested in any way in business journalism, in all of the locations, there's a lot of opportunities, and we lose out on some really good internships that the students just at this point aren't interested in doing. So
yeah, there are a lot of good broader things to say, but I want to be sure we go to our final locale in the Republic of South Africa, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Cape Town. Erna Smith, the professor who runs this program, has a wonderful visiting professor gig going on at Northwestern. So she isn't with us, but we have two wonderful students, in one broadcast and one PR, right? So Regina, you want to kick us off? And then we'll move to Mary.
Hi everyone, my name is Regina, and I went to Cape Town with Mary Beth, and over the summer I worked for the newspaper called the Cape Times, and it is the only English-speaking or only English daily paper in the city. South Africa is home to over 11 languages, but English is, number one language, and everyone speaks English just about. And I had a great opportunity over the summer, and I came home with over 40 clips. And I didn't just stick to one section or one area, just doing crime or court. I decided to take in everything, and so my first day there, they sent me out to cover a protest at the city center. And so I went out with a photographer, got lost, figured it out, and got the story, went back, typed it up, and it's they treat you like you're part of the staff and getting paid even though you're not. And so they rely on you to get your story done and get it done on time and make sure that you have a photo with the story if there's a photo needed for the paper. So it's a real life job. I had a lot of great opportunities to meet cool, different people living in the city, doing different things from filmmakers to social justice advocates. Michelle Obama came over the summer, and I had the opportunity to go and cover that event for the paper, and so that was amazing because, here in the States, as an intern, you would never get to cover Michelle Obama coming to your city. So to go abroad and have that opportunity was amazing. Our program, we lived right in the middle of the city, so for me and Mary Beth, we just walked across the street to work, and others had transportation provided for them. But we took different, I don't want to call them excursions, but
yeah, we had different class trips
where we saw different sides of South Africa, not just staying inside of Cape Town. One weekend we conducted a high school journalism workshop with high school students and basically taught them how to make a audio package using Audio Boo and radio kits that we brought, and going out and covering different issues in the community. And that was really fun, and allowed us time to mingle with younger students and see okay, well, why are you guys interested in journalism, and why do you guys want to do this field where kind of interesting there.
And that was published too, and it was also put on the consulate website for the States.
So I had a wonderful experience. I don't know if you want to talk about your work.
Sure. So I also worked for a newspaper under the same umbrella company, IL Newspapers, but I worked for the Cape Argus. I started out as a staff reporter as well, and by the end I was working in the business section, which I actually really enjoyed, and it was something that I hadn't expected, but one of their reporters had to go on a personal leave, and they needed someone to fill the spot, and they picked me, and so I just kind of stepped up and did it, and I think it was some of my best reporting, and I wish that it was something that I had gone into earlier. And so the business reporting side of it was something that I really liked and something different. And also I think that in South Africa, in addition to having great internships, we had amazing internships. People interned in radio, people interned for PR companies such as Native, which are really big online and kind of social media oriented PR places. People have worked for TV stations there. And like Regina said, wherever you go in South Africa, they will always treat you as a full-time employee. You're not getting people coffee. You're not, just doing research for people. After they give you a day to settle in, and after that, you're a staff reporter. You're making your own radio show, and they really treat you like an equal. And also, I think what's something that was really important about our experience too is that
we worked to meet in the same company. We were in different newsrooms, and every single person had a different internship, and so we were kind of thrown into a whole new cultural experience that is radically different than anything that we had ever experienced before. And we were always working with people, from South Africa and from all different walks of life and all different races. And I think that it was something that was really important, and it really was a really cool social justice opportunity as well. And there was a lot of learning involved in that.
I would say one thing, with us being journalism and there's PR
You guys are
students.
both in journalism, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There were many PR students.
Yeah, PR and I
Thanks.
think maybe comm management or global.
Yeah, people
comm.
worked at the consulate, people worked for radio, everything.
I think with that, the combo of all of the different disciplines really helped our situation, because if, say, one of the girls, Katie, she worked for a documentary film festival that they were putting on in the city. So I contacted her hey, can I get access to this director? And so she yeah, hooked it up, and I went and interviewed the guy the same day, whereas tippy-toeing around it and trying to figure out how to get in, it saved a lot of time with having each of us in different areas of the city and worked for our stories. And that's another thing, working at the news agencies, they expect you to pitch your own ideas.
Right.
And it's not oh, they're assigning you stuff to do. You have to come in with
every
a story
morning you have a
pitch
budget
every
meeting
morning.
and you had to bring in at least 2 stories. And also, with the jobs too, by the end, they all wanted us to stay as full-time employees.
Just need to be so.
Sarah Kane actually did stay. She's still working there now at her PR agency, Native, and a lot of us were told if you ever come back, we would hire you full-time. And I think that was a really big compliment.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
So as you can tell, these are all 4 great programs in 4 very different cities. In addition to these experts around the table, we have here my colleagues who are our associate deans for student affairs and academic programs and admissions, Allison Hill and Evan Kahn, and Matthew Erskine, the director of international programs. So let's open it up for questions from anybody, or anybody else want to jump in with a report from his or her time abroad?
It seems to me the School of Business, Marshall School of Business, has a lot of programs of interest in China. So I was wondering if there was any way that you guys could work with them, possibly. Just curious about that.
Collaboration on the graduate side is a little harder on the academic front, I think, because of where the students need to take the course. Marshall has a good set of undergraduate study abroad programs. They have a lot of exchange programs. They also have internship programs very similar to the models that we have. I think at the moment they do what they do on the finance and business side, and we're doing the journalism, PR, communication management.
And sometimes aren't they for the same companies, perhaps?
No, we keep them pretty separate.
Okay.
Where we do have common programs, for example, for an undergraduate program in Dublin, we will have the students in journalism and PR and communication, and they will just have their business-oriented students. We don't cross over. We're not in competition with one another.
But I thought their MBA students had to do a portion
Yes.
of their abroad.
Every MBA student has to go abroad for a chunk of time, as I understand it.
Yes, and then they have the global MBA program.
Right.
Yeah, we're not at a point where we're collaborating on that level.
But I appreciate you raising that. If any of you are on the fence about going abroad at all, as opposed to thinking about which program you want, I really encourage you to think about it. I think I'm grateful for the 5 years I spent overseas. It certainly strikes me as one of the formative experiences of my life, and I know all of you would agree that it's just enriching in every way. And even if you've traveled a great deal, this is a different experience from travel, and I really do hope that you will think about it. I think it would greatly enrich your experience here. So you guys must have some questions. You look alive. Yes.
Actually, I have 2 questions. The first one is, what are you guys looking for in our application forms? And what kind of characteristics, what kind of qualifications? And my second question is that, what would the interview process be? Like, how long the process would be? Like, how many stages?
I'll defer to my faculty colleagues, but I think the quick answer is it's a very fluid process. what we want to do is get as many of you all overseas as we possibly can. So the baseline that we're looking for is that you are a registered graduate student, you're in your first year currently, and importantly, academically, you need to be in good standing. You need to have a 3.0 GPA at the beginning of the spring semester and at the beginning of the summer. After that, if you have, if we have all of your information and you've fully partaken in the proper interview and you've done everything that we need from you to get you overseas in the summer, we're open to as many students as we can possibly get. Now, depending on where you want to go, some of the programs may become more impacted than others. We may have to interview. We'll look at recommendations, the faculty letters. But really, our goal is to have as many of you in the first year of both programs be able to go abroad as we possibly can.
It's quite inclusive. We do ask you to list your first and second, and then you can go third cities, because not everybody can get into his first choice, but many people have ended up having a great experience, perhaps because of that. Did you want to say more, perhaps, John?
No, I mean, that's right. It's an easy process. I mean, there's not a series of interviews. There's an interview. The only reason for the interview, actually it's twofold, but the main reason for the interview is to make sure we can place you. We don't want to bring people to a given location that can't be placed. So if we have a particular interest and a particular skill set, we find out at the interview, and it just helps our placement people place you. That's all.
Jay?
You don't have to do the interview with the company you want to interview.
That's later. That's after you're admitted to a particular program. Some of the internship providers, some of them require an interview, some do not. And that's specific to the particular internship provider.
Depending on the location, we bring someone from the country overseas to LA in the spring. Or it's done by telephone or by Skype. And the students work with that placement coordinator and work with the faculty through the course of the spring to ensure the placement. And the placements can take anywhere from a month to 3 months. I mean, it's really what we ask is for the student to be flexible, for the student to be
patient.
Yes, patient, exactly. Because people will get placed at different rates, and it's the toughest thing, I know, when you see your friend has been placed by the end of March and it's getting to the end of April and you haven't been placed yet. It's no reflection really on the student.
We had a situation last spring in London. We had been working on a placement at The Guardian, one of the world's greatest newspapers. And we told the student we were working on it, told her to be patient. She wasn't. And the week before we left, she said, I just can't wait anymore. And she dropped out. The next day, the placement came through, the very next day.
Then you were going to ask.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about my experience trying to get interviewing with the company. I had the same concern. I was getting impatient about where I was going to be placed. I was applying to all these different news organizations, being really aggressive about it. But what happened was I had one Skype interview with the digital boss at CNN, and it worked out, went great, and the guy went ahead and hired me. So I mean, it's a process. I think it taught me it taught me a lot of humility too when you're applying, and also patience in the whole process. But I mean, they do place you. Yeah.
I think there's a note here needs to be said about managing expectations. It's nice to say I'm going to come to this, I'm going to go for this internship, and I want to work for blah blah blah. I want to work for New York Times right away. Well, part of it is you need to know where you're coming from to your skill set level. So we want to try and make sure you get the best internship possible, but you also have to remember you're coming to a certain skill set. If New York Times wants you to speak Chinese and you don't, well, you do. And maybe we don't want to place you in New York Times because maybe you don't get a byline in. Maybe all you do is be a gopher there. We want to make sure you get a really great internship where you get bylines and do stuff. So I think you also need to be very flexible. The keyword is flexible.
Part of the job of our faculty and our placement coordinators is to open your eyes to the different opportunities. Because you may go in there thinking, I want PR agency X in London, and they don't, as May said, they might not be able to take you straight away, but there are other opportunities and other ways to reach the goal that you want to get to.
Yeah, we had a student who said, I only want to work for a brand name PR agency. She wanted to work for a major PR agency, but she had very little work experience before that. She did have an interview with a major PR agency, but they didn't offer her a spot. So we had other agencies lined up for her, but she said, I only want a big name agency. We said, well, but look, hey, sometimes at a smaller agency you can get much more responsibility and experience than you would at a bigger agency. And, to be frank, since you don't have a whole lot of previous experience, why not at least just interview some of these other agencies? You will brush up on your interviews. But she said, no, I only want to work for a big agency. So there's not much you can do with that kind of thing. So in the end,
well, yeah, we had, May's exactly right. Let me give you two examples. Broadcast student wanted to work at the BBC. We can do that. We can put somebody at the BBC. We have a source there. But if you're at the BBC, you're not going to be able to do anything except watch other people do their thing. The same token, we had a student who ended up working for a local FM station. And she was on the air every single day of the summer covering her town, which was Hayes, Farmington. And, which is a better experience, which gives you a better resume? Well, if you want the brand name on the resume, okay, fine. But if you really want an experience, if you want to show future employers that you can actually do the job on the ground, it's easy. Public relations. We had a student a couple of years ago, one of our best students, wanted to do transportation public relations, wanted to do it for a brand name agency. He was placed at a very small agency out by Heathrow Airport, whose only two clients were United Airlines and Air Canada. No, he said, much too small agency for me. Wound up working for a big firm downtown, didn't do anything all summer that he could call his. Whereas if he worked for the smaller agency, he would have just had incredible contacts for exactly the sphere that he wanted to go into. So at some point, you need to trust our placement people. That's what we pay them for. But if you insist on, for instance, going to work at BBC, we can do that, but consider the experience of it.
Experience is really the key, yes.
So what exactly is the balance between internships that are set up, pre-provided, and what are students researching to apply for?
Well, we're not sending you out and saying, okay, go apply to these 3 places by yourself. We always have someone, and in many cases two people, the faculty member and the placement coordinator, assisting you with the placement. In most cases, one of those 2 individuals will be out there sending your resume out. The student responsibility is to make sure that the resume is updated as they need it for whichever country you're looking at. Social media presence is becoming more and more important, and one thing, especially in London, they're really pushing is a good professional Facebook page, Twitter accounts. You're following the right people when you're tweeting. You remember Sam was huge on making sure that your Twitter presence is there, your LinkedIn profile. That is the student responsibility rather than researching and pursuing and following up and following up. Once you do your own personal legwork, then it's our placement coordinator who's going out there and selling you. So we're not putting the onus on you to actually do that for yourself. That's why we have these placement coordinators and our faculty who are reaching out to these people where they think you'll probably be most appropriate. So there are some cases where students bring contacts, people they may know, family, friends, and they can pass them on to us and our coordinators and say, okay, would you approach, person X at The Guardian is a good example, on the arts desk, for example. But really, we're not making you go through the whole process through the spring alone. That's not the point of this. Does that help?
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
For the programs in China, are there language classes offered beforehand or while you're there?
Yeah, we've been asked this one before. I remember Ben was
I asked the
asking
exact same
Ben.
question.
What was my answer?
But you're not going to have enough time, don't bother. That was
Yeah, we could spend, Chinese is very complex. Cantonese even more so. Mandarin, Mandarin's complex. And so
Cantonese is harder, yeah.
Yeah, to the kind of jobs we are trying to place you at, where you're constantly interviewing people and talking, if you don't have that level of language up there, you're not going to learn it. The most you're going to learn is, ni hao, how are you, where are you ordered. And I don't want to spend a whole semester teaching you that when I'd rather be spending it teaching you about the economics, the political, social stuff, the stuff that you can really hit the ground take with you for your job. Whereas you could spend 5 weeks learning how to stumble along in language. It's not a great use of time. I mean, of course we would love it if we were all fluent in the language, but you know, a 2 months prep is just not going to make you, not in Chinese anyway, maybe some other language, but not. So rather than having you learn that, I'd rather you learn what the political system is like, so that when you hit the ground running, maybe you could cover a rally or something, or you know, or what the major businesses are, so that when you go up there and say they throw you into a counter pitch for something, you know what that is. I'd rather have you do that. You got a better use of your time.
You guys had brief Hosa lessons.
Yeah, we Hosa lessons.
Did it help?
Can you click for us?
It did
help a little bit.
And it's a pretty easy language. It's phonetic, so it's much simpler. And yeah, I mean, it was conversational. It was fun.
I mean, my first day at work, they spoke to me in a language because they thought I was African, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, sorry, maybe in a couple weeks, but.
But one thing that is the Hong Kong and Shanghai programs that we have a lot of Chinese students or Asian American students like Christy who do speak a language. So one of the things that the non-speakers found was really great was all their friends could help them translate. So anywhere they were going for, you know, catching taxis or going to
a mixed blessing.
Ordering food. It's really quite fun, right? It was, you were rooming with Shuzi.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I remember we would take taxis and we made sure to throw like one Chinese speaker into the cab with like the rest of the students. But again, like for interviewing purposes, for you know, journalistic purposes, 95% of all the interviews I did, English was not a problem. There was a few where I needed some Cantonese help or Mandarin help, but generally it's not an issue.
I mean, you know, generally, we can always throw in a few. You can always learn a few when you're.
Yeah, I learned a few words too.
And then all it does is the icebreaker. You know, people are like, oh, he speaks other.
Yeah. For us too, we would always go out with photographers for our story, and so they would always speak one of 11 languages, and that was always really helpful.
Especially when you're in the townships.
Yeah, but in the city, everyone speaks English. But when we went to the Eastern Cape, then that was when our Hosa lessons came in handy.
Yeah. Jay, it's an option in Shanghai, right?
In Shanghai, our positions, I mean, so far, I mean, for the agency positions, we have English only, and then we have bilingual. So most of the agencies that we've been working with, they all have English only positions. And to get around in Shanghai, I mean, these days, you know, it's fine without speaking English.
Didn't the students get issued a little card that they could hand to a taxi?
Sure, yes.
Please take me.
Yeah, take me home. Take lost, take
Who else? Any other questions? It's about 1, so we could take one more if you're burning with it. But thank you so much to all of you for participating, and I hope you will all decide you want to pursue one of these or more.
And the deadline is Friday, as you call it.